But on that, from the Kenya piece, Kiptum was like a goat farmer or something, right?
All these guys are farmers. So kip
Really?
it's a term of like you're of something. So like your
Oh,
Kiptum is like the son of Tum, or Lagat. Kip Lagat is the son of Lagat,
okay.
and they're all farmers. It's farm culture, and so
Interesting.
so they're mobile, right? And so this is also a huge thing, is that they're always moving, and it's very different from us, who are, we sit for work.
Yeah.
They move for work, so they just have a natural buoyancy that translates into their running, and reminds you of watching kids run, because
Yeah.
they're so effortless, and they have such a natural geometry that we lose when we sit down and work. But when you're picking up water, or you're tilling with a hoe, or you're throwing hay bales into a barn, right? These natural types of movements, of multi-directional movements, just work out all of those joints and ligaments, and just give you this natural leverage that allows them to run with this effortlessness. As much as we say running is just one foot in front of the other, we say that as a way to democratize running, and I get it. We want to open up the aperture to allow as many people into running as we can, and that's great. I love that. At the same time, though, it's somewhat pejorative, because it's not as easy as putting one foot in. It's not as easy as putting one foot in front of
Yeah.
the other. There's a very specific geometry to running that actually differentiates it from walking. Because I would say putting one foot in front of the other is walking.
Right.
Running is actually jumping. So you actually look at the European languages, they have it right. Swedish, running is springa.
Oh,
Spring, you hear spring.
yeah.
Norwegian, loping, loping. German, laufing, leaping, right? These European cultures understand that running is actually a concatenation of jumps, right? Running is jumping, and it's this
Interesting.
ability to actually put together your three leverage points of your ankle, your knee, and your hip into a spring. Collapsing those three into a short lever and then extending it into a long lever is this idea of called triple extension, where you're able to store energy and release energy. And it sounds complicated, but when you look at it, you know it. You can see it. There's a very different look to how a Kenyan runs,
Yeah.
because they actually look like they're springing off the ground. They're not landing. They're actually springing.
Yeah.
And the analogy that I like to use is like a pinball machine, right? Where, you know when you hit a great pinball shot, because the ball spins all the way around and goes through every little nook and cranny, right? But you got to hit that. You got to hit the pinball right on the sweet spot of the fin, and that releases the whole kinetic chain, right? So for running, it's being able to hit right on the midfoot, right? And be able to flex your ankle, flex your knee, and flex your hip, and just light up that whole kinetic chain that makes it this natural bounce that just happens, right? You don't have to force it, right? You just, when you hit a great pinball shot, it's not about hitting it hard, pressing the button hard. It's just about hitting it right.
Yeah.
Right? So it's about landing perfectly and setting off this kinetic chain that allows you to fly. And this is what the Kenyans have mastered. And again, like, this is what I take people to Kenya and Ethiopia to just learn these, see these drills happen, and understand it's not just getting out of your door for a run. Actually dedicate yourself to do 5 minutes of these drills. It'll send you into your run feeling so much more ballistic and buoyant.
Oh, I love that. I love how passionate you are about this too. Like, I can tell, I just feel the energy that you give out of, like, not just nutrition, but just running and this kind of stuff in general. It's so cool to see.
Well, totally. And a lot of this stuff too was like, I was seen as kind of like a crazy person when I used to do these drills before, like 5Ks and 10Ks when I moved back to LA. I had all of this knowledge from traveling, being in Australia, traveling in Kenya, seeing these runners, and I would do 30 minutes of these drills: A skips, B skips, C skips. You've seen these drills.
Yeah.
Well, because now you go on Instagram and all of these are being shared. So now it's actually pretty common. Like, this has started to, people have started to recognize that this is very important piece of the run. But back when I was doing it, they were like, who is this crazy guy doing looking like the Sprocket, looking like an episode of Sprockets, which like was a SNL skit of like bouncing around up and down, right? But it makes sense, right? It's again, running is a movement skill. And I think for me, I love that we're bringing people into running, but I think we've got to be able to really empower runners, right? Get them to get a runner to understand the geometry of running, the forward lean and giving yourself to the ground and sacrificing yourself, right? So we sacrifice ourselves kind of in that physical way, but also that mental way. You have to like lean forward and kind of give yourself to the ground so you're able to hit right under your center line of body weight to be able to run. We're kind of tentative in putting the foot out in front of us, which creates a braking force. Yep. Whereas really you have to surrender and you have to literally fall forward and let yourself go to let yourself happen.
Yeah. I got my running form analyzed. I'm sure you've done that several times, and I learned so much from that. Surprisingly, they said my form was like generally good, but even like there's just so many small little tweaks you can make here or there. That's like over the course of a marathon, that 1% little change in your gait that could be minutes off of a marathon. If you stack a bunch of those on top of each other, it's like that's huge gains you can make. Just not even from like a fitness standpoint, but just your mechanics, it's so cool.
Yeah, you're doing 20,000 jumps instead of 50,000 jumps, right?